Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Do you hear that? Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. It's our kavod gadol that so many people came out tonight for the Divrei Hisaurus. It's our kavod gadol to host this event. Thank the Kollel for organizing this event. And without further ado, I would like to call up the Rosh Kollel to begin the program. Our pleasure.
Good evening, everybody. And first, we would like to thank everybody who worked very hard to organize tonight's shir and Drasha. This is a joint effort, and making sure everything runs smoothly. We thank Rabbi Przewalski for really arranging it, and for the yeshiva and joining us in putting together this shir and Divrei Hisaurus. Thank you very much, and to Rabbi Roth for making sure everything is taken care of as needed. The truth is that for me personally, this is a little bit nostalgic because I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, and as a boy from bar mitzvah age and on, I had a Rabbi that took a group of us every year to Baltimore in the Teshuva to hear the Teshuva Drasha of Frand, and it was something we always looked forward to. We started off in the Aguda building, and then once it got bigger, to the next venue, and we followed Rabbi Frand as it got bigger and bigger. And we truly always walked out with his iris, and I'm sure everyone here will as well. Just to steal a little bit of a line that I always remember that Rabbi Frand would begin with, and I think it's appropriate here. I just hope I'm not stealing your introduction for tonight. That really the truth is that just seeing everyone come together in the days of Elul is itself a chizuk, and everybody making a statement that we are here to be nis'oyer and be nischazik, that itself is already a chizuk. We've come, we're seeking, we're trying, we're looking for ways to improve, and that itself is already a statement to the Rebbeinu Shalom that we want to shtay, we want to grow. And that itself is already kedai to be together with a group of people that are looking to grow. So that's the beginning of this iris, and I'm sure by the end of the evening we will walk out with a tremendous amount of more iris. And with that, it's a big kavod to be able to call on our friend Shlita to give us Divrei Chizuk this evening.
I mean, it's somewhat of a loss to be Pesach Bichveit Achsanya, because it seems to be that there are two different Achsanyas over here. There are two different hosts. If I could put it in yeshivish terms, there's a Cheftza and there's a Gavra. The Cheftza is the yeshiva, and the Rosh Yeshiva, I don't know each of them, but I do know Rabbi Luban, because I know his brother very well. So Birshus the Rosh Yeshiva and Anholas HaYeshiva, that's the Cheftza of the Mokum. But the Gavra are really the Reish Koil of North Miami Beach, Rabbi Blezer and Rabbi Provalsky. And I must say that I arrived this afternoon, went to the hotel where I'm staying overnight, and usually someone comes and picks me up, but Rabbi Blezer picked me up himself. I'm sure he's a busy man. He's the Reish Koil. He has better things to do than act as an Uber. So I really want to thank him for extending me that covet. The truth of the matter is that it has been many years that I've been to Miami to give a Teshuva Drasha. The reason for that is because I'm afraid of hurricanes. And this is the height of hurricane season. And when I was handling with Rabbi Provalsky about this drasha, I said, I can only go to so many places, and if there's a hurricane, I'm not going to get stuck in Miami. It's a wonderful place, but I do have a day job, and I can't get stuck here. So I said, if there's a chashash of a hurricane, thank you, I'm just going to cancel. And are you willing to do under those conditions? And he said, yes, Almanas Kain, thank you, Almanas Kain Anu Eisin. So when Dorian was scheduled to hit Miami, we all were somewhat apprehensive. Baruch Hashem, certainly for your people, that it didn't hit and you were spared. My wife and I took a short vacation right before the beginning of this month, and we chose to go to Charleston, South Carolina. So I don't know what it is about me, but apparently I am somewhat of a magnet to hurricanes. But we got there in and out before it actually hit. So I just want to thank all of the hosts for putting this together, which is not as easy as it looks. And as Rabbi Blezer mentioned, it's bemis in a medrash that Banishlam says people come to hear divrei tshuva. That in itself is mechilas avainos. You get mechilas avainos just for showing up. So I hope my words will help you, but even without that, you're already zeicha to a portion of mechilas avainos by virtue of the fact that you're here. I'm sure that many of you feel like I do, that when we lay in these last parshias of Sefer Dvarim before the Yom Noraim, it's as though the Torah is talking to us, particularly the psukim of Parshas Nitzavim, when the Torah writes, Ki ha-mitzvah zeis asher anochi mitzavcha hayom lo nifleisi v'mechav alei rechai kahi. This mitzvah, which according to the Ramban is referring to the mitzvah of tshuva, it's not beyond you. It's not beyond your reach. Le b'shamayim hi, it's not in the heavens. Le me'ar miyalenu hashamayim v'yikachel lanu v'yishmeinu v'naseh. It's not in space. V'le me'aver layom hi le me'ar miyaver lanu hasever hayom v'yikachel lanu. It's not across the river. V'yashmeinu v'naseh. Ki karoiv eilecha hadavar ma'oid. It's as though the Rebbeinu Shalom is telling us Teshuva is not that hard. And you can do it, and it's close to you. And don't worry, it's not beyond your reach. Those are the psukim of Parshas Nitzavim. And yet, there's another pasuk in Parshas Nitzavim that I think it's always troubled me what that pasuk is about. Moshe Rabbeinu warns the people, Parshas Nitzavim are the last day of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's last Musar Shmuz, so to speak. And Moshe Rabbeinu writes and he says, Pen yesh b'chem isha yisha, o mishpacha yishevet asher levavei panei hayoim im Hashem Elokeinu, u'lechas lavedes elkei hagoyim ha'heim. Lest there's someone amongst you who will be tempted to worship Avodah Zarah and to go and to serve other gods, the gods of the other nations. Moshe Rabbeinu warns what will happen if in fact you do that. And nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu continues and says, "V'haya b'shamai as divrei ha'olah hazais." But lest there be a person that when he hears this olah, he hears this klala, he hears these curses about what will happen if you worship Avodah Zarah. Le'mor shalom yi eli, ki b'shrus libi elech. Lest there be a person amongst you who will say, Shalom Yali, Shalom alai nafshi. I won't have any problem. Peace will be with me. And I will go as whatever my heart feels like. How could that be? How could anybody, after hearing the words of Moshe Rabbeinu say, Shalom Yali, doesn't affect me? Moshe Rabbeinu has a track record. He's been right for the last 40 years. So what's what? He doesn't believe Moshe Rabbeinu? He doesn't think Moshe Rabbeinu it's true? He's kidding? Is he not in touch with reality, this person? Is he in denial? The answer, I think, is that this person is a classic example of a psychological phenomenon that was identified more than 50 years ago called cognitive dissonance. Now that's a highfalutin term, but what does that mean, cognitive dissonance? So here's the textbook definition of cognitive dissonance: the mental discomfort experienced by a person who simultaneously holds two contradictory beliefs. Means I'm troubled because I'm believing in two things that are a stira to each other, that are a contradiction. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu is warning over here. Yes, I know Moshe Rabbeinu is right. And if Moshe Rabbeinu says this is going to happen, it's going to happen. And yet somehow or another, he believes it won't affect him. It's what we call in the Olam HaYeshivas a stira, a contradiction. And that contradiction in his mind makes this person uncomfortable. That's cognitive dissonance, this discomfort that a person feels by holding two contradictory things at the same time. And somehow human beings have the capacity to somehow reconcile these two contradictory ideas and beliefs, to relieve this stress and discomfort that I have from going ahead and believing two different things that oppose each other. I think a classic example, a everyday example of cognitive dissonance is a person who smokes. And I'm not here to offend anyone who smokes, but everybody knows that smoking is dangerous for your health. Besides the risk of cancer, Rahman al-Islam, it increases the risk of heart disease and stroke and other maladies as well. So how can a person continue to smoke if he knows that it is in fact a fact that people get very seriously ill from smoking? So in order to relieve this tension, this stira, the person comes up with several rationalizations so that he shouldn't be tormented by this contradiction. I smoke, and I know that smoking is bad. For instance, he says, if I exercise, it won't affect me. So I'll go to the gym, and therefore I'll be all right. Or he'll say, if I stop smoking, I'll gain weight. And gaining weight is more dangerous statistics than from. But our person is warning him what's going to happen. This is how somehow or another he reconciles, he rationalizes in his mind that Shalom Yeli. There are several examples in Tanakh of this Hanavi. This person in this room, because he's spoken to the Ribbon Shalom, and he knows that the Ribbon Shalom is everywhere, and he knows that it is impossible to escape the Ribbon Shalom. And yet, he tries to run away. How can you do that? Because Yonah Hanavi had two opposing things that he was dealing with. Number one is the tzivoy of the Ribbon Shalom to go to the city of Nineveh and tell these people, and they will do tshuva. These non-Jews in Nineveh will do tshuva. That's a tzivoy Hashem. On the other hand, Yonah knew that they perhaps would do tshuva. They probably would do tshuva. And the non-Jews would do tshuva, and this would be a kitrug, this would be an indictment of Klal Yisrael that the non-Jews do tshuva and you don't. So I can't live with this. And therefore you have to rationalize. And you have to try to run away, knowing full well you can't run away from the Ribbon Shalom. The story of Shaul HaMelech, when he's commanded to go ahead and to wipe out Amalek, is even perhaps a sharper example of cognitive dissonance and how a person can in fact rationalize almost anything. Shmuel Hanavi comes to Shaul HaMelech and tells him in no uncertain terms what he has to do. He has to wipe out Amalek, man, women, and child, and he has to wipe out all the livestock as well, and he has to kill Agog. There's no two ways you can learn the psukim. And what happens? Shaul HaMelech goes to Amalek. He goes and he kills the people, but he saves the livestock, and he even saves Agog, Melech Amalek. Shaul HaMelech comes back to Shmuel Hanavi, and the first words out of his mouth is Hakimaisi as Dvar Hashem. I have fulfilled the words of the Ribbon Shalom. What are you talking about? Hakimaisi Dvar Hashem? Uma kol hatzoyin asher anochi shemea. Now what's that racket that I hear from all the cattle? And he doesn't have charot immediately. It takes him 4 times. 4 times. How could he have done this? How could you say Hakimaisi Dvar Hashem when the Rebbe Hashem said kill the livestock and you didn't? Teretz says he was tormented. The people wanted the livestock. The Rebbe Hashem says kill the animals. I was tormented. So somehow or another, Shaul HaMelech made up in his mind that this was a kiyum of Hakimaisi Dvar Hashem. It's the same example as the Shalom Yeli. And now that we're all feeling good about ourselves and pointing fingers at the Shalom Yeli and pointing Chas v'Shalom at the Yonah Hanavi and Shaul HaMelech. But the sad truth is that we do the same. We all come up with rationalizations. Because it is very, very difficult for human beings to say 3 words. I was wrong. And therefore we build these fantasies and rationalizations. You know, through the course of Yom Kippur, we will say Al-Chet 8 times. The second of the Al-Chets is Al-Chet Shekatan L'Fnecha Be'imutz Halev. What does Be'imutz Halev mean? Hardening of the heart. This is not talking about cholesterol. What does Imutz Halev mean? Imutz Halev means that I have difficulty admitting I was wrong. We refuse to admit that we may be wrong, and that's the first step of tshuva. And when a person can be able to look at himself and say, I was wrong, and to be self-critical, he's never going to do tshuva. Rav Ben Zion Cook, the Rav in Eretz Yisrael, once came to Rav Al-Yashiv, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, and asked him an eitzah. There was a shidduch that was suggested and proposed for his daughter. The bocher came highly recommended, a terrific bocher, a big masmid, a lamdin, a baki, choshev, a family, ala milas. The Bacher only had one chisorin. He skipped Musar Seder. And he refused to go to the Musar Shmuzin. For those of you who are not perhaps familiar with the Seder HaYeshiva, but there's Musar Shmuzin, in which the Mashgiach or the Rashiva gets up in the Beis Medrash and he points out people's mistakes and people's foibles and how people are wrong, and they have to correct. It's self-examination. This Bacher didn't come to the Shmuzin and didn't learn Musar Seder. Other than that, the guy's perfect. Rav Kook goes to Rav Elyashiv and says, should I take the shidduch? Now, if I would take a poll, I would believe that most of you would say, of course you should take the shidduch. Most of you didn't go to Musar Seder either. Rav Elyashiv told him, don't take the shidduch. Why is that? Because a bacher who has no shaykhis to Musar will not be introspective and self-critical. And he won't accept responsibility. He won't be able to say, I'm wrong. And if that's the case, there can be shalom bias problems. Because when issues will come up in a marriage, he'll seek to blame everyone but himself. It's my wife's fault. It's my mother-in-law's fault. It's my Rashiva's fault. It's everybody else's fault, but it's not my fault. And that is a recipe for shalom bias problems. Because we have to be able to admit, I was wrong. So what does this have to do with our tshuva? I have to assume that the vast majority, if not everyone sitting in this room, are Shemei Torah mitzvahs. We keep Shabbos. We keep kashrus. We keep Taras HaMishpacha. We learn every single day. We support our husband learning. We enable our children to learn. I am looking at the shufar, the creme de la creme of Klal Yisrael. And I'm giving a Musar Shmuz and a tshuva drasha about what? What's there to do tshuva on? The answer is that all of us, in spite of this long list of what we do right, have certain inconsistencies in our lives. And for people like ourselves, this is what we have to do over the next few weeks and what we have to do in Yom Kippur, and that is to look at the mirror and ask ourselves, do I live with certain inconsistencies in my life? Yes, I am a shomer mitzvah b'tachlis. Yes, I go ahead and put on tefillin. I may even put on Rabbi Tam's tefillin. I do all of these things, and I learn. But do we live 100% consistent lives? Are there steers in our lives? And that, I think, is the tshuva for people like ourselves, Shemei Torah mitzvahs. Are we consistent? Because if we are willing to live with our inconsistencies, we will never grow. We will never grow. We will be shalom alai nafshi people. Shalom yali. You know, the Mefarshim in Chumash are bothered by a very interesting question. The Torah enumerates the non-kosher animals. In order for an animal to be kosher, it has to have 2 simanim, it has to have split hooves, and it has to chew its cud. And when the Torah goes ahead and lists the animals that are not kosher, it lists, for instance, the camel or the pig. And the Torah tells us, yes, they may have one of the signs, they may chew their cud, or they may have split hooves, but they don't have both. And if you don't have both, it's not a kosher animal. Then why does the Torah have to tell us, yes, the pig has a split hoof, but it doesn't chew its cud? If you don't have both, you're not kosher. End of discussion. Then why does the Torah have to say, it has this, but it's still not kosher? It doesn't have both. That's irrelevant. Rabbi Baruch Finkel, Zichrono Livrocha, sees in this a metaphor to human beings. Yes, the animal isn't kosher because it doesn't have both. But what the Torah is trying to tell us over here is a metaphor for human beings, people that have one sign of kashrus, and they have aspects of kashrus, and there are parts of their lives that are 100% kosher, but yet they're still not kosher because there's inconsistencies. And they engage in the type of behavior that a fruma yid should not be engaged in. Take, for instance, the issue of honesty, of how we deal in business, how we deal with insurance companies, how we deal with government programs, and generally, how do we act in the workplace? Do we give our employers an honest day's work? A whole honest day's work. Listen to a Rambam in Hilchos Schiris. Zok the Rambam, V'chein chayav lo avoid b'chol koichai shahari Yaakov hatzadik omer ki b'chol koichi avadati es avichem. You have to give your boss, your employer, whoever it may be, an honest day's work. Shahari Yaakov hatzadik omer ki b'chol koichi avadati es avichem. Yaakov Avinu had every right and every rationalization in the world to go ahead and to cheat Lavan. Lavan was a crook. He was a used car salesman. He cheated him left and right. So if I have to go ahead and have to cut corners with Lavan, that shouldn't be a problem. And yet Yaakov Avinu refused to do that, and he said, "B'chol koichi avadatis avichem." I looked it up. There are 8 times in the Rambam that the Rambam mentions Yaakov Avinu. There's only one time in all of the Rambam that the Rambam calls Yaakov HaTzadik. And where is that? Because he was Erlich, because he was honest. That makes him a tzaddik. A tzaddik is not necessarily a person who davens along Shemini Esrei. A tzaddik is not necessarily a person who goes to the mikveh every day. A tzaddik is a person that's Erlich, that's honest, that does an honest day's job. My father-in-law, Zichrono Livrocha, Rabbi Yaakov Blumenkrantz, was a fundraiser for the Ner Israel Rabbinical College in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. In the 1940s, he didn't have his own car. So how did he get downtown to see people to donate money to the yeshiva? He got bus fare, he got car fare. And he would go see people and solicit money for the yeshiva. Once he was downtown, and he met someone from the Frand community, and the person offered him to take him a ride back into his home to the yeshiva, which he accepted. Saved him the tirch of going on the bus. The next day, Rabbi Isai, ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Blumenkrantz went to the secretary in the yeshiva, and any of you who are old Ner Yisrael people will remember Mrs. Rose Liebtag. He went to Mrs. Liebtag, and he returned the car fare that the yeshiva gave him to go downtown. Now, this is the 1940s. What was the car fare? A nickel? 25 cents? But he gave it back. She told me this. I never heard this from him. He died before I married his daughter. But this is what Mrs. Liebtag told me. Because he was an Erlich Yid. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average worker spends 1 hour and 5 minutes a day looking at various websites. That does not include checking one's cell phone and sending texts. That's also part of the Alchetz. Bedas u'v'mirma, violating how the Torah tells us to treat customers, competitors, workers, and employees. We all know why it's such a nisayon to cheat. Because to be a Fruma Yid, a religious Jew today, costs a ton of money. It's very expensive to be a Fruma Yid. Besides the Yomim Tovim, besides the schar limud, the tuition, and the camps that we must send our children to, and the chasanas and the bar mitzvahs that we have to make, it takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to go ahead and to have a typical Jewish lifestyle, and we're not talking about the size of families. So we are under tremendous pressure, and we can rationalize it and say, listen, I have to send my kids to camp. I have to support a son-in-law. But the Torah says you can't do that. And as important, the honesty issue is, there's even a larger issue at stake. And that's the issue of emunah. One of the most off-sided things that people say is that this Rosh Hashanah, it's going to be decided to the penny how much I'm going to make. Everybody quotes that. But do we really believe that? Or is it just lip service? You think maybe we can outsmart the government, or outsmart our employer, or outsmart the insurance company. But we can't outsmart the Replenish Shalayla. You know, the Gemara tells us that after we leave this world, when we go up to the Yeshiva Shamayla, the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to ask us, Nasasa v'nasata be'amuna, were you honest when it came to business? So recently I saw a different insight in that. Nasasa v'nasata be'amuna does not only mean, are you honest when it comes to business, but nasasa v'nasata be'amuna, if you believe in me, if you believe that I provide the parnasa, then why are you cheating? Nasasa v'nasata be'amuna. The gleibst nicht. You believe or you don't believe. And being honest is not the only nisayon that we face in our quest for parnasa. Here's a story provided by an employer who has a company with many frum Jews. Listen to this story. We had a frum salesman who came to the manager one day to hand him the file of his largest customer. He said he can no longer visit this customer as he is simply too attracted to the female buyer, and in a panic told his boss, I never want to see her again. I can't control my Yetzer Hara. Whatever the financial repercussions will be, I'm sorry, I have to be able to desist from seeing this woman. That, Moirav Rabbi is an example of a person that felt he was living with an inconsistency and it just wasn't right, and he was willing to walk away from it. Because it's inconsistent. You're a Fruma Yid? Now you're thinking about another woman? And rather than making excuses and rationalizations, he said to himself, it's just not right. And that, Moirav Rabbi, is the essence of what I'm trying to convey tonight. That we have to look at situations that come up in our life and say, guess what? This is just not right. The happy ending is this fellow became more successful and went on to Aliyah. He built a beautiful family. He never became a gvir, but he was a gibor. Because he said to himself those words, "This is just not right." I heard of another fellow, a Rabbi, a day school teacher, who, like most day school teachers, had a very difficult time making ends meet. So how did he do this? How did he make his ends meet? He sold his airline miles. And he was about to sell, he accumulated a lot of miles, he was about to sell them for $3,000. For to him, that was a lot of money. Now it seems, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge and I don't know the law, but it seems that there is some question. The airlines think that this is not legal. I'm not here to go ahead and to paskin that shaila, whether it's legal or not legal. But he had heard that the airlines think that this is not legal. You're not allowed to sell your miles. And you know what he did? He didn't sell them. Because he said to himself those words, "This is just not right." And truth be told, this is the area where some people will find inconsistencies in their lives. And that is the dichotomy that exists between how we act in shul, how we act at home, and how we act at work. And we sometimes engage in the type of behavior that we would not do in shul, at home, or in front of other from a Yidden. And I am specifically referring to how people act with members of the opposite gender. And this is not only an issue that applies to men. It's an issue that applies to both men and women. There's a relatively new book called Making It All Work, with the subtitle, Women Surviving and Thriving in the Workplace. It's written by a fellow who I happen to know named Ari Wasserman, who's a graduate of Harvard Law School, practiced law for many years, went into business, became quite successful, moved to Eretz Yisrael, teaches in Or Sameach, and is an author. And he spent a considerable amount of time dealing with the issue of women in the workplace and the issues that they face. Here are several quotes from the book before we get to quotes from actual women. The top-ranked workplace challenge reported by many from women relates to men. This problem is compounded by coworkers generally being on better behavior at work than they are at home. At home, he yells at his wife. At work, he reins in his temper. At home, she walks around without makeup and in a robe and slippers. At work, she looks her best while wearing nice clothing. At work, the coworker of the opposite gender is ever so supportive. At home, there are dirty diapers, bills to pay, and a testy spouse. At work, there is success, team spirit, and a feeling of being appreciated. At home, a woman has to self-affirm. All this makes the workplace an escape for many, and therefore fertile ground for developing relationships that they should steer clear of. And here are the words of some of the women he interviewed. I am not making these up. These are verbatim quotes, and they are footnoted. Listen to one woman. You start knowing and understanding each other really well after working together for many years. And then it could happen. I had that feeling with my boss. I knew his family very well because this was a family business and his wife visited often. I got to know her well and saw she was a difficult woman. It was obvious that she didn't understand him. Not like I understood him. And he understood me too. I knew what he was thinking. I could finish sentences. But he was a God-fearing man. And I was a frum woman. So we set boundaries, and we never let anything go past that. But still, the thoughts themselves were wrong and a betrayal of our respective values. It just wasn't right. And this does not only happen in corporate America and secular workplace. It can happen in frum workplaces. Frum men, frum women. What could be better? Here's another testimonial. Many women naively feel that if they are working in a good frum environment, they don't need to be as careful around men. But in my experience, they should be even more careful, precisely because of the inherent familiarity, because we understand so much about each other, because we live in the same communities and know each other's family, we tend to let our guard down. And this is particularly negea single women who have not perhaps found their shidduch yet. They make easy prey for men who pay them a compliment and make them feel good about themselves just when they feel at their lowest. I read an account of a frum employer that is mostly frum workers. He hired a Satmar girl straight out of high school. He noticed that there was a frum man who started paying a lot of attention to her, started flirting with her, and she was enjoying it. It may have been her first contact with a man who was not part of her family. The employer felt he had to put a stop to this and told the guy to back off. We speak about echad bepeh ve'echad b'leiv. But there's another inconsistency. It's echad b'bayis ve'echad b'shul ve'echad b'workplace. Or how about the dichotomy between how we act when we're home and how we act when we are on vacation? You know, I hear about frum people, graduates of yeshiva, that go to places for vacation that really a frum yid has no business being there. How do you reconcile that? How do you live with that inconsistency? The answer is, it's vacation. Vacation, hutru kol hachavilas. That's inconsistency. I can't stand here and list all the variables and all the places that this could crop up. But this is my one message. Are we living consistent lives? Is there one part of our life, maybe a small little corner, that we all know this is not right for a Ben Torah, it's not right for a Fum Yid? That's the tshuva that people like us have to do. The truth of the matter is that this is not a new issue, and I'm certainly not the first person in history to talk about this. None less a personage than Eliyahu Hanavi was bothered by this. In that famous meeting of Eliyahu Hanavi with the Nevi'ei Baal, with the false prophets of the Baal on Har HaKarmel, When Eliyahu goes and says, Vayigash Eliyahu el kol ha'am vayomer ad mosai atem peschim al shtei haseifim. How long, how much longer will you straddle the fence? One day you're with the Ribbon Shalom, and the next day you're with the Baal. Make up your minds. Be honest with yourself. Don't be inconsistent. And an even more shocking statement, Eliyahu continues and he says, "V'zel l'shoinoi, im Hashem Elokim l'chu acharov, v'im habal l'chu acharov." If you believe in God, then be an Eved Hashem. You believe in Baal, then believe in Baal. Do you mean to tell me Eliyahu Hanavi is advocating Avodah Zarah? V'im habal l'chu acharov? And if you believe in Baal, then go ahead. Gesundheit, chas v'sholom. What he's advocating is consistency. And what he's saying is, I can bring a person back if he's honest with himself. Person says, I'm sorry, I'm an Avodah Zarah, I believe in it. I can reach that person. Because at least he's consistent. But ein tag heint, and then the next day is different? Ein tag the Rebbeinu Shalom, one day the Rebbeinu Shalom, the next day a Baal? No. That person is faking himself out. Much harder to reach him. That's what that pasuk means about the non-kosher animals. Ironically, the non-kosher animal that has one siman is more treif than the animal that has no sim on him. Because it's a metaphor to people. The people that know that they're treif, they know they have to do tshuva. The people that think that they're half kosher are hard to reach. When Rivka was pregnant with Yaakov and Esav, she felt this, she felt this inconsistency. She'd go by the base medrash, and the baby would want to come out. She'd go by the base Avodah Zarah, and the baby would want to come out. She says, what's going on? I'm pregnant with someone, with a being that's so mixed up between base medrash and base Avodah Zarah. So what did she do? Rabbi Seidu Dorashu Loshen Ritzik Shaya Averes Apischei Torah Shel Shem Ve'ever Yaakov Rotz. When he went to the yeshiva, Yaakov wanted to come out. Averes Apischei Avodah Zarah Esim Afarches. And what is she told? Shnei Goyim Bevitneichu Shnei Lumim Magnets. You're pregnant with twins. And then she was all right with that. She's all right with that? She's all right with a son that's going to be an Oved Avodah Zarah? The teretz is, she's more all right with that than one child that's both. That's one day Avodah Zarah and one day Beis HaMedrash. I'll have 2 children. I'll try to work on them. But ein kind, but one child that's so mixed up? What am I going to do with that? No, we're honest people. We're Erlich people. How do we live with our inconsistencies? And the answer is, as we began, because we rationalize. And we say, the Rebbeinu Shalom understands. He knows I'm human. I try my best. I'm far better than 95, 99% of the people on the planet. And I'm far better than 90+% of all Jews. I'm a Shomer Shabbos. I wear tefillin. I keep Taras HaMishpacha. I raise my children. I'm great. Because we all say, like that person in the Parsha, Shalom Yiyali, God will understand. And Hashkafa of Shalom Yiyali is the route to lack of growth. We'll never grow. We'll never be better. We all know how Yom Kippur ends. We're tired, we're hungry, it's Ne'ilah, we're at the end of our strengths. And you know what we do at that time? We say those words, Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem hu Elokim. For those of you who ever davened in the yeshiva, the words literally bounce off the walls. They echo. You know when those words were first said? Those words were said on Har HaKarmel when Eliyahu HaNavi challenged the people and said, Amosai atem paiskim ashtei asipim. When he challenged the people and he said, how long are you going to be inconsistent? That's when those words were said. Those words, Hashem hu Elokim, were said in response to that question. No, I got it. Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem hu Elokim. It's as though Eliyahu HaNavi comes to every shul and every Beis Medrash across the world like he comes on the night of Pesach and he visits every Seder. And it's though Eliyahu HaNavi is asking us, Bishas Nila, Ad Mosai Atem Peschim Ashtei Asifim. How long are you going to be inconsistent? This Eliyahu HaNavi who's with us the entire year, he's with us on Pesach, he's with us on every bris, he comes to us on Nila by Yom Kippur and he says and he's saying to us, Ad Mosai Atem Peschim Ashtei Asifim. And when we say those words 7 times, Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem hu Elokim, that's what our response is. I've looked at my life. I've spent Aseret Yemei Teshuva examining myself. I see the inconsistencies, and I'm going to correct them. I'm going to stand up and be counted. And that's the import of those words, Hashem hu Elokim. It is our job. It's 2 weeks from Rosh Hashanah. It's our job over the next 2 weeks, and especially in those Aseret Yemei Teshuva, this self-examination of are there inconsistencies in our lives, so that when we get to Ne'ilah, we'll indeed be able to utter those words, Hashem hu Elokim, and to really mean it. Aksiva Taiva, and a good gebench to Yar.